Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so today we want to discuss the homework assignments. So if you can, Tomasz, like just start with the information about what the homework assignments are and what do we mean about the whole homework assignments.
All right, so just to be clear, because some people think, hi guys, first of all. So just to be clear, the homework assignments are not only an idea of our industry, I mean IT, programming, or whatever. You can find homework assignments in marketing, in sales departments, and so on and so forth, because for example, you can have like a presentation that you're supposed to prepare for in a marketing department, or maybe you need to like study a given market and how to enter it when you're applying for a sales job. But in our particular industry, which is programming or IT in general, the homework assignment is basically, most of the time, it's a piece of code that you're supposed to write, or a piece of infrastructure that you need to provision, or maybe prepare some data science model and run it and validate it. And the company that tries to recruit you, or the company that you're applying to, gives you this assignment, and typically you are given like a week to complete the assignment, and your result is supposed to be both code and some like insight, like maybe some tests written, maybe some comments, maybe some review, whatever. But in general, you are given a programming task that you need to complete, and most of the time you are doing it in your free time, because from 9 to 5 you are having your current day-to-day job. So we would like to discuss today whether it's a good idea to have such an assignment, what is the attitude of candidates towards such assignments, and whether they are effective or not.
Yeah, and the first thing is that you told that you have, let's say, 7 days to do that. The first thing to consider is, if I'm a candidate and I know that I get 7 days to do this job, do I understand it as like I need to spend 7 days doing that? So like basically 7 days, let's say 3 hours per day. So it means that I need to like spend like 20 hours or maybe 30 hours writing code. So do you find it like a common understanding of like a deadline here? Like 7 days means that you need to spend a lot of time to do this homework, or just like 7 days so you can like do it anytime you want during those 7 days?
So you know what? First of all, the recruiter needs to be clear about it, whether it's 7 days, because the homework is so comprehensive that you need to spend 3 days, 3 hours every day, just like doing the implementation, and there's no possible way of completing it earlier, and you need so much time. But that kind of homework I would reject straight away, because that's way too much struggle to complete. The 7 days, I would treat these 7 days as in, you have 7 days, and depending on your availability, you can do it during weekend, you can do it on Friday afternoon, you can do it in Saturday morning, whatever you want. You just have 7 days and just like pick your 1 hour slot or whatever. However, you just have to be clear about it as a recruiter. Obviously, you're not going to be, it's impossible to make sure how much time a candidate spends on a task, but tell the candidate in advance that this task is supposed to be completed within 1 hour, or maybe 2 hours, or 15 minutes, whatever, because that gives a certain time frame to a candidate, that he or she knows that this task is easy, this task is hard, I'm not supposed to spend 2 working days completing it. And that's kind of like setting up the expectations, and that's just one of the expectations that you should reveal when you are giving a programming assignment to a candidate.
Yeah, so just to sum up what you said, like the first thing is that homework assignments shouldn't be too big. So they should have like a particular time limit and be more like 2 or 3 hours than 2 or 3 days of work. I mean, like day by 8 hours per day. Because it's like it's way too much. And remember to always tell the candidate that, okay, you have 7 days or you have 14 days, but on average it take like I don't know, 1 hour or 2 hours for a candidate to complete the assignment.
Yeah,
But
I think the longest recruitment process I saw on the market take like 8 hours in total. I mean, all the talks, all the assignments, and so on. So you're spending the whole day in a company during the and you're doing some pair programming, or you're doing a series of assignments. If you're giving your candidate in the first place an assignment that will take 2 days or 3 days, it means you're greatly exaggerating, and you're like putting way too much stress, and you're requiring a candidate to put way too much time on the programming assignment. So a few hours, that's tops, basically.
Yeah, and also what I, for example, dislike in the homework assignments when I was like asking candidates to do that, is that a lot of people treat it as a kind of a playground to showcase their skills. So you have some project that is very simple, let's say GitHub client, and there is one API call, one REST endpoint, and then you see inside that there is a CQRS, that there is a domain-driven design and everything. There are like contract tests, like unit tests, integration tests. There is database, like 2 databases, 3 databases, distributed caching, etc. What do you think about such approach? Do you think like the homework should be kind of a playground for candidate to showcase how like great and awesome developers they are, or it should be like, show me that you can resolve the work, or do you think that it should be like clearly said by the recruiter, like, hey, here I expect you to just resolve the problem and do it like in a good enough way, and not to use every single framework that you know. So like the compilation of this small project will took like an hour just to download the whole of the Node.js repository. So what's your like approach? Do you think that you as a recruiter should let the candidate choose the right approach, because that's also part of the recruitment process, or do you think that you need to be clearly like described? So yeah.
All right, so it kind of sounded like a rhetorical question, but just to dissect what you said, if you're giving that's what I strongly believe. If you're giving an assignment to a candidate, just to be fair with that candidate, you should set expectations at least on a minimal level. Like, your task is to implement a simple application, and these are the requirements. And as part of the requirements, you should say something like, this application should be production ready. And as a candidate, you should understand what production ready means. What are the factors? 12 factors, if you know what I mean. What are the factors that you should like take into account? Should I write tests? Should I use a specific technology, and so on and so forth? So most of the time, I would say that if you want to have a fair process, you should give very clear. You should raise very clear expectations to each and every candidate. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't allow candidates to be you shouldn't give them some sort of freedom. If you have a candidate that's a world-class leader in, I don't know, domain-driven design, or using the internals of the Django framework or whatever, and maybe the candidate wants to kind of prove that he is actually an expert in this particular field, then I wouldn't be angry if I saw a programming assignment, a homework assignment, that's showcasing the very specific skills of that candidate. However, this is a little bit risky, because as a recruiter, as a technical recruiter, you might actually be really upset because a candidate like over-engineered a homework quite a lot. That happened to me a few times. For example, I'm quite experienced in reactive programming, and someone gave me a homework assignment that was using reactive programming all over the place, which was totally unnecessary. However, I still enjoyed reading that code because that's kind of part of my expertise. But this is really risky, because it might not have been me, but a different person. And for the different person, and probably for 99% of other developers, this would just be silly because someone is over-engineering. So only if
the question is someone is only engineering only during the homework like assignment, or it also shows some kind of an attitude for this of this person. And I would be really afraid of someone who like really over-engineered the homework assignment, because okay, so now he want to like prove to me when I'm hiring this person, trying to hire this person, that it's an awesome developer. But the same can happen if the new team leader will join the team, and this person will try to like impress the new the new team leader or impress the new manager or something like this. I think that like trying to over-engineer stuff is like, it's pretty common in our industry, and it happens often when like someone get back from a conference and tries to like implement all the new stuff everywhere because it looks so cool during the presentation that it so show to me if the candidate is mature or not, like how much over-engineering does he or she implement. So I would think about that. Also to treat this approach of the candidate and the attitude of the candidate as a part of the recruitment process, because I was working with developers who were like injecting like reactive programming everywhere, and it was a nightmare to read their code, or they were like fan of dynamic languages, and like you know that it's hard to read dynamic languages, harder than a static one. So I think that the approach that the candidate have when this freedom is there also tells you a lot about the candidate. But we have a comment right now that you should give to the candidate some kind of requirements and give them a few days, and then just take a look about the design approach to code, how they are testing, how they're using TDD, etc. And I think that's crucial, because what I want to see is I like the production ready. Like, hey, this code should be production ready. It's not a POC when you can use some technologies that you don't know, and that's the first time when you see it. I would be afraid of using some new framework for the production product just when I started learning this product yesterday, because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of best practices that I'm not aware of, and there are a lot of pitfalls that I can run into when I don't know about it. And even the Spring framework that a lot of people think is pretty easy to understand, there are a lot of bad practices that you can run into, a lot of pitfalls and a lot of traps that you need to be aware. So that's my impression on that. And the question is, if, for example, what should be the level of freedom that you give to the candidate? Should you allow the candidate to do everything from scratch, so without even a small piece of bootstrap project that he or she can extend, or should you give some part of the code and say, okay, so here is a sample project, and then you need to add a feature to that or something like this. Because at DevSkiller, for example, when we give something that can be treated as a very simple and time-limited homework assignment, then we always start with some projects, so the candidate don't need to think about, okay, so what build tool should I use? Should I use this or this IDE, etc.? Should I use this or this testing framework? No, it's it's not important, because it's kind of an architecture, and that's what we can discuss during the interview if you are good. And then I will understand for what kind of project you will use this build tool, and for what kind of project you will decide to use something else. So that's something that can be verified later. So I think that the first thing that you need to realize when you are doing homework assignments is, what do you want to verify? If you want to just simply filter out the candidates who are not capable of writing very simple project that have particular structure and maybe not I don't know, hexagonal architecture, but something that doesn't look like a piece of shit, to be honest? Or do you want someone to showcase all the skills and the production readiness and understandings of logging, metrics, etc.? So what do you think? Do you think that more often the goal for the homework assignment isn't too wide? If we are not trying to verify everything with just one simple assignment.
Okay, so the first question a few minutes ago was, how much freedom should we give to a candidate? And you know what, I would simply say, do your best. So do whatever it takes to write a production quality code. And this tells a lot about the candidate, because if your problem statement is show off every possible technology you know, so that we can assess how much you know and how many different things you can squeeze into a single project, that's okay. You're setting an expectations. However, most of the time I would simply say, do whatever it takes, and just program as you would normally do in your day-to-day job. And in this way, someone is hopefully not over-engineering, and also you are limiting the time boxing, the time it takes to finish an assignment. And that's how you hopefully avoid over-engineering and adding every single piece of technology and every single design pattern, because that also happens a lot when candidates want to put every single design architecture pattern into the code just to show off. And the second question was whether, if I remember correctly, should you give some sort of a bootstrap project, like a skeleton of the project, or just ask the person to write?
So it was the first question, basically. The second one was, should you define what you try, even internally verify with this homework? So why do you give the homework assignment to the candidate? Do you want to verify just something, or just every single skill, like design, architecture, testing, performance tuning, like logging, monitoring, etc.? Or should you say directly like, hey, I just want to verify if you're able to resolve a particular problem, and then we'll discuss rest of the thing, I don't know, during live coding, during some interview, etc.
Yeah, I think I strongly believe that our industry is too much focused on hello world examples and starting projects versus maintaining projects. So having a skeleton, having some sort of a scaffolding, so a bootstrap project that actually works, that you can download, run on your machine, and it actually builds and executes, is crucial, because first of all, you have something to start with, and actually your task is no longer implementing a whole application. Your task is more like filling in the gaps. So for example, the application already exposes a piece of API, and you're supposed to extend that API, or make it more resilient, or support some different data type, whatever. So you are not lost, you are not starting from scratch, and this means as a recruiter, you know where to look for, because you know which gaps were supposed to be filled in. And also, this is much easier from the assessment perspective, because the candidate won't go overboard with over-engineering, because he or she knows that you're just supposed to fill in the gaps. So write few tests, add an endpoint, add support different data type, whatever. So I would almost always suggest just having a minimal project that actually works, runs, and builds, so that the candidate has something to start. And it also shows that you actually care from the recruiter part. You're not just saying to a candidate, okay, please implement this application, it's going to take somewhere in between 30 minutes and 30 days. You actually did some preparation, so the candidate sees that that the company also cares, and it's fair from both sides. And so the second point is that it also verifies that you are capable of maintaining a software, not only starting a new Hello World application, because that's easy and you can do it within seconds, but you are capable of diving into an existing code base, smaller or bigger, typically smaller, but anyway, you can go into someone else's code and make some changes in a very limited time frame. And that's a very, very important skill, like reading code and understanding what's there, keeping being consistent with what's already in the code base, which is yet another great skill. And if you have an application that's basically just CRUD, reading from database and returning to the browser, and you add some really funky frameworks or some approaches that aren't there, you are over-engineering, and it's very easy to spot immediately. So that's the second point. And the third point, which is an advantage of having a bootstrap project, is that, and also covered in the previous ones, you are once again setting in expectations. So if someone sees a project and he or she knows that there's supposed to be a new endpoint to be added, then you know what to assess. You are looking at this new endpoint and how it was implemented. If your task is to implement a new application from scratch, there's even a risk that someone is going to implement something entirely unrelated to the requirements. So maybe the requirements weren't clear, maybe a candidate misread them or something, and you end up with something that you have no idea how to assess. Maybe someone wrote a great application, but it's not the application that you had in mind. And yeah, obviously that tells that tells a lot about the candidates, that he or she can't understand the requirements, but maybe you weren't clear with the requirements. If you have scaffolding, and that scaffolding, for example, has a few endpoints, and your task is to add resiliency or add caching or add, I don't know, storage or whatever, error handling, then it's really hard to screw it up because you already know what kind of things are going to be verified. And there are some things that are not written, you have to read between the lines. Like, if I'm adding a new functionality, should I add tests or maybe not? Does the existing code base have tests? If not, should I add them? Right?
Aren't you afraid, when you are giving to a candidate kind of a scaffold or an existing project with the information that, okay, so we need to do such and such changes, and they need to be production ready, that the candidate will assume, okay, they just want me to write the code for free, and then they are going to use my code on production, and that's their approach to do the job without hiring people. Because I've heard many times such voices from the candidates that probably they need to integrate some API with, I don't know, the payment provider or the GitHub API, etc. And they ask me to do that, and they do just copy paste my classes. So don't you think that it happens when you ask someone to do the homework assignment that is production ready and based on current structure?
That sounds really funny and unbelievable to me that a company would like to have a free developer this way. It might happen if you are giving someone an assignment that actually takes 30 days to implement, right? That's what we started with, that the assignment is so long. And then I would actually reject such an offer and reject such an exercise, because yes, it takes way too much time, and it's my time that's basically wasted for implementing code that I'm pretty sure no one's going to use. And if they do going to use in production system, that's even worse. Maybe you can cover it in some, I don't know, NDAs or contracts or some written assignment, whatever, that this is only for recruiting purposes. But still, the value of having a pre-built project, that, by the way, our fourth thing that I forgot, you can have automated tests that are making sure that whatever the candidate wrote actually passes these tests. So you have an automated suite of tests, and you don't have to look at the homework to verify that it's correct, because it's all automated. But we're talking for 20 minutes already, and I think the feedback and how you evaluate a homework should actually go to another live, because we won't have enough time, and we already.
But it's good to mention that, because homework assignment is something that is understood generally and viewed from the perspective that it takes time. It's time consuming. So I think that the vast majority of people, when they see the homework assignment, they know that it's time consuming from the candidate side. But to be honest, and if you want to be honest and fair for the candidate, you should give something in return. And a lot of people, and that were also the voices that you get on Twitter, as far as I understand, under the tweet when you ask about the homework assignments, was that I'm doing the assignment just to get valuable feedback. So if I'm applying to very good company, I expect in a return very good and detailed code review of my code. So I treat it as, okay, so I've spent 4 hours writing a code for you, and then you should spend maybe not 4 hours, but maybe an hour to give me a feedback about this code. So do you think that it's necessary to provide such valuable and detailed feedback for the candidate when you get a homework assignment?
As a candidate, I believe that is fair, and that's kind of necessary, because I spent some time of my life. And just like you are expecting to get feedback after a normal interview, after just a chat or phone call or whatever, it's just good manners. Just as well, you should have a feedback after a programming assignment. And by that, I mean a code review, or essentially why I failed. Maybe you can simply say, because we have automated tests and they failed, and you didn't pass this and this requirement. But also it's great to get a code review, especially if you're applying to a company that you know it's great and it has great engineers, and you know that one of these great engineers is doing the code review. Then you would love to have a code review from a person who is more experienced than you. That being said, it means, and it's a double-edged sword, that means that when you're giving someone a programming assignment, especially a very long one, and especially the one that cannot be automatically tested and verified, you need to spend extra time of your engineers to do the code review. And well, they do have to do it anyway, and they also have to write down the comments, and that you need to provide it to a candidate. I think it's just fair from like a human perspective. You can also do a code review using a pull request, whatever, but it's a good practice because that builds your brand. You just have to be aware of the fact that it takes time. I mean, seriously, you have to do it in an honest way, not just like saying someone that, yeah, your formatting is bad and I don't like your homework. So yes, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, so I think that from what I see is a lot of companies are doing or using the homework assignments at the very beginning of the recruitment process, because they like see that, yeah, it takes no time from our side. We just give a candidate the homework assignment, and then when we have time, we verify the solution, and then we provide a feedback to the candidate, etc. But I think that a lot of companies are not aware how much time they eat and spend and burn on reviewing such assignments. And if you just do not review them, but you verify like, yeah, I don't like it, so you get to the feedback with the feedback to the candidate that we don't like you or something like this, then your brand awareness and the employee branding hurt, because then this candidate will tell to different candidates that don't take their homework assignment because you'll get nothing in return. So that's the problem. So like just if we'll try to like sum up what we said, like the first thing is that you should be very clear in what are your expectations in terms of this assignment. So what do you want to like verify, or what do you want to check with this homework? Are you focusing on the design? Are you focusing on like just the program works as expected and the functionality is correct? Do you care about the production readiness? Do you care about the, I don't know, some tools that are chosen by the candidate or framework, etc.? Should the candidate like show you that he or she can learn new skills because you decided to use some funky framework, etc.? So that's the first thing. Like, be very clear about the expectations. So
and also time box the assignment. So give a suggestion. This is supposed to take half an hour or 2 hours, because otherwise someone like if you see that an assignment is supposed to take an hour and it takes you already 4, maybe you misunderstood the requirements, maybe there's something different, but at least you know in advance.
Yeah, the second thing that is very important is what Tomasz explained, like the feedback. So if the candidate is spending few hours to take your assignment, he or she expects just part of this time spent by your developers on providing the feedback and the comments and the code review on this homework assignment, and that's the second one. And the third one is like think really very carefully about in which stage of the recruitment process you want to use this assignment, because I'm not sure if homework assignments are the best way of filtering candidates. They can provide you a lot of information about the candidate, but still it depends on what do you want to verify and what are your expectations. And you need to be very like honest even to yourself. If you just want to verify if someone is able to resolve some very simple problem, like invoke a REST call and like add the timeout handler, circuit breaker, etc., or do you want to verify if someone is able to design the system, choose particular tools, choose testing strategies, showcase the TDD skills, etc., etc., etc. And so these are the 3 most important things, like clear expectations, like stage in the process, and good feedback for the candidate. Tomasz, do you have anything else to add here?
Actually, quite a lot, and I feel we're going to have a second live about homeworks. For example, how to design a good homework, how to design an automated process of assessing it, and how should the feedback look like, to be a little bit more precise. So maybe even the general rules how you should give a code review, which doesn't only apply to recruiting process. And I believe you also mentioned about having a skeleton project that you can start off with rather than starting from scratch.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. Stay tuned for the topic for next week. We'll post it on our socials like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye.
Bye, guys.